Today we sit down with Andrew Sharp, data governance and data protection consultant at the Oakland Group. We discuss the critical importance of making data accessible and how it's the key to unlocking the future. Andrew shares insights into data governance's role in shaping AI development.
I think AI is with us to stay for the foreseeable future. Data is the glue that drives AI and those good business decisions.
Andrew warns that businesses ignoring the central role of data in their strategies risk obsolescence in a rapidly evolving marketplace.
Unless you're investing in the future, be that AI in data tooling, then at a point in time, they are actually going to struggle financially. There's an awful lot of businesses out there that continue to make money despite not doing necessarily the right things with data.
Our conversation is a deep dive into why prioritising data and its governance is crucial for any business aiming to stay ahead in today's dynamic environment. Enjoy! Andrew, let's talk data.
Thank you very much, Emma. Looking forward to it.
So before we get into data governance, just want to talk about data more openly and demystify data somewhat, because to those not in the data space, it can seem complex and inaccessible to some degree. So how do you think we can make data appeal to the masses?
No, it's a really good question, and you're right. Data is not the most exciting of subjects, and therefore an awful lot of people immediately start saying the word data, they start glazing over and switching off. So it is a real challenge, but it is the lifeblood of all organisations. So how do you make it more accessible? You make it a bit more fun and interactive, and also make it a little bit simpler for people to understand. I think if you position data as sort of techno speak or very abstract concepts, and people aren't going to actually connect with it. So, data touches everybody's lives. It's being able to articulate that in simple terms and make it real for people and
100%.
make it a bit funner.
And it is fun.
It is fun.
It can be fun. So in terms of decision making around data, is that something that is very much part of your organisation? And have you seen that evolve over the years as well?
Absolutely. I work for an organisation called the Oakland Group, who are a data consultancy. So we are heavily involved with all range of clients in all sorts of industries about helping them make better decisions with their data. So absolutely, that goes part and parcel with what we do as an organisation.
So with your pitching, or when you're looking to onboard new clients, what kind of decision making, aside from the obvious, can data help with?
So in terms of, the clients that come to us are typically grappling with data problems.
Right.
And therefore, some of them want stuff to be built. We need a new system to do X, Y, and Z. Can you help us? So you need to build a data platform. Sometimes they need a strategy. We've got all this data. Don't know what to do with it. What is the plan for it? How do we best use it? So there's an awful lot of work on strategy. Another part is analysing it and drawing insights and decisions from it. So that's a key area for us as well. And then how you look after it, which is sort of where I do a lot of my work in the governance space, which is making sure that people understand the importance of data and don't do silly things with it, which is going to cause problems from a quality or assurance perspective. So the people that we tend to talk to are already to some degree knowledgeable about data, and will be on a spectrum of understanding.
That's a good point, because they may want to commit financially and time-wise to a strategy, but after that it's how they maintain it in-house, because you're not going to be there all the time to hold their hand through that process. So what kind of examples do you give to people and how they can do that?
Yeah, it's a really good point. Some organisations do come to us and we do have a ongoing relationship.
Yeah.
So one or two organisations do actually give us the keys to everything, if you like, and we are involved with them for a good number of years. Others come along and say, can you do this? But there's always an intention that they will reverse it into their own organisation, which makes a lot of sense, and it's a far cheaper way. So we've been recently working with a bank where very much we've gone in, helped them get the thing up and running, and we're now handing over to someone else who's been hired to actually take over the cudgels, and hopefully we will get repeat business on the back of that. So there's different models, but most of the business tends to be around someone having a problem that needs fixing, with a view that they then fix it longer term by bringing people in, and we can help them train those people and educate them accordingly.
Yeah, okay. So in terms of success stories, without naming any names, if you'd prefer not to, do you have any examples of someone who came with a terrible data problem and how you solved that?
Yes, I mean, there's a number of different organisations that we work with. We work with Yorkshire Water, who are a very large utility company, which the clue's in the name, which Yorkshire is a big county, and they've got lots of data. We're working with them, helping build platforms, helping with their artificial intelligence, helping with their governance. So that is a real success story from where they were 3 years ago to where they are now. We also work with organisations like Vodafone, who have built a global business but still grapple with some of the issues around how they look after data and how they actually get people to care about it. So they've come a long way in a small number of years in terms of getting people to actually own the data and actually be responsible for it and drive improvements in the quality. A lot of the clients talk about data quality, so a lot of our success stories are around helping them identify where they've got problems with data quality, and then showing them a structured way to actually fix that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, because a lot of people are very much engaged with the idea of AI, but you can only have successful AI if you've got the right data.
Absolutely, and AI is the big, new kid on the block, and Oakland is very much focused on, how you can use generative AI, and there's different ways of deploying it. You can replace, obviously, the extreme example with AI and replace humans, but you can use AI as a support or augmentation to your data capabilities. So you can build lots and lots of capability through developing your AI capability, but you're absolutely right. AI is founded on having good data, so we keep saying to people, please, please, please don't start doing clever stuff with AI if your data's not going to be fit for purpose, because otherwise you're going to get biased or false or inaccurate answers, and that's always a challenge that we have. But it's the nice new shiny thing, and everybody wants it. Everybody wants the nice new shiny thing, and we quite often have to say, hang on a minute, before you buy that, talk to us about what you need to do to get your data fit for purpose and getting the right foundation. So the principles of what we do are no different for a company embarking on an AI journey as opposed to one that's more traditional in its needs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does. It's like business, really, isn't it? Go slow to go fast, build foundations, solid foundations, especially if you're looking to grow, whether that's revenue or headcount or whatnot. So in terms of data governance, to those who maybe don't understand the phrase outside of the space, how would you explain it, quite in layman terms?
It's a good point. I mean, governance is one of those really, as soon as you say, governance, everybody goes, blimey, what's he on about here? But governance is all about getting people to care about the data that they're using, and that can be in terms of the actual processes that they use to bring data into the organisation, the systems that they use. So data governance is a very people-centric activity, and it's all about making sure that you have people that understand the importance of data and know what to do with it and care about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So is that similar then to data literacy?
Data literacy is sort of an offshoot of data governance. You almost need data literate people in order to help with the data governance. So if people don't know what good data looks like, or haven't been made aware through training or education of what good data looks like, you're going to struggle with governance. So data literacy and data fluency, they're sort of similar terms. They're interchangeable, but if you don't have that, you will never get good data governance in your organisation, because you're going to struggle.
Okay. So in terms of the Oakland Group, I guess it's very much supply and demand for yourselves, and AI is the big topic. How have you ensured that as a business you're in the best position to advise? Because it's all new for everyone, isn't it? So in terms of the consultants that work there.
It's a really good point. I mean, Oakland has been going for 30 odd years, and it started life as a quality assurance function. So John Oakland was a professor at Leeds Uni, and then realised there was an opportunity to sell his services commercially. And then about 10, 15 years ago, someone said, I think data's going to be quite big. Perhaps we should, maybe we should focus on that. So it was a very good pivoting point. Yeah. So the majority of the people that work for the Oakland Group now are specialists, and we recruit from a range of industries. Many of them have been consultants in data beforehand. Many of them are experts also in AI. So we're all on a learning journey, but we're very careful in who we recruit and where we recruit. And I think there's about 80, 90 in the team now. Brilliant. So we've grown significantly, but hiring is a challenge, which is obviously your business.
It is.
But AI is a challenge to get the right people, and AI means different things to different organisations. So you have to have a blend of people that can do different things with different technologies. Yeah,
and there's conflicting opinions on whether AI should be part of data strategy in terms of a data leader, because suddenly it's been thrust upon people who are, say, heads of data and whatnot. Oh, AI, there we go, you run with it. And they may not have any real formal education, formal training in it, and they're expected to take on that huge piece of technology. So what do you think that is the wrong thing to do, just thrust it upon data leaders?
It's an interesting one. I think it depends on the organisation. I think AI and data go hand in hand. And therefore, if you're looking for where it logically sits and where you will get maximum benefit, it will be in your data leader community, be it your chief data officer or whoever. So I think the challenge is baby steps in terms of how you actually implement that. If you're expecting this person who, as you say, has been doing X to suddenly do Y overnight, then you're into a difficult conversation. But there's data leads out there who absolutely get the importance of this and can take that kind of broadness. But most organisations we see are ones that are taking fairly structured approaches. I think the pressure comes from those that hear and see and talk about AI and then tap their data leader on the shoulder and say, what are you doing about AI? Yes. When can we have it? And you go, hold on a minute, we haven't even decided what the strategy is. And that's where the likes of Oakland can help in terms of working out what your AI strategy is and what you need to do with your data to get it match fit, etc. So there's lots of different approaches.
So in terms of data governance for yourself, I know there's often weird and wonderful ways of getting into data, because perhaps 20 years ago it wasn't the sought after career that it is now. So how did you get into data in the first place?
That's a really, really interesting one, and probably the greyness shows my age, but I sort of fell into data because you're right, 15 years ago data wasn't a career. It was sort of something that people fell into, and my background was classically in market research, marketing research, compliance, worked for different organisations, and then there was the credit crunch. And I was working for a bank at the time, and data suddenly became quite important because it was originated from dodgy data. Basically, everybody thinking the subprime market in America was hunky-dory, looking at the data, and then it actually wasn't. So the banks suddenly started realising, and as did the regulator, that data needed fixing, and therefore people went, where are we going to get all these data professionals from? And you then were sort of tapped on the shoulder and said, you've done a bit of analytics and you know a bit about data, come and work in this function. And that was literally how I sort of fell into the data space, and then went on and did various things in the bank and other organisations. Whereas now you can sort of not necessarily born as a data person, but there is a very structured path if you want to follow it, and none of that exists. Or so you have data science courses, data governance courses, data management courses, data engineering courses. None of that existed, 15 years ago. So we've come a long way. But yeah, I was fortunate because I fell into it really 15 years ago. Would I have consciously now made that choice to go into data? I'm not sure. Probably it would have been a different career path, but
yeah.
Who knows?
So in the past 15 years then, what have been the most significant changes that you've seen in the field?
Ooh, blimey. That's a really good question. I think the speed of technology being able to interrogate data. I mean, we don't hear about it much anymore, but you remember a few years it was big data.
Yes.
It's all about big data. And that was all about having massive data sets and someone being able to run a query and, how much is the cost of fish fingers in South America and get the answer back in about 10 seconds or something. That ability to query data, 15, 20 years ago, you were struggling to do that. It would have taken you weeks and weeks and weeks. So I think the ability to interrogate data at pace has been a big change. I think there's been the shift from all the systems. When I started, it was all on premises.
Yeah.
Now it's in the cloud, and multi-cloud and all that, and all that stuff, which I don't actually purport to know the details of, but that's been significant. We've also now got, a general awareness across industry of the importance of data, which I think's been massive. I don't think there's any organisations that don't have knowledge, awareness, interest in data. So there's been a lot of big changes. But yeah, the technology, the actual ability to interrogate vast data sets smartly, and actually just the people involved in data is huge.
Sure. So from a personal development perspective, how would you stay ahead, because it is always evolving, and it's like any industry that we're in, we need to personally develop?
It's a really good point, and personal development is an ongoing challenge, because what we see, and I suppose you might be seeing this as well in the hiring space, is as AI comes in, as technology comes in, people like myself who started out sort of not really doing much technical architecture, knew a bit about it and could get away with it, need to actually learn new skills and new knowledge. So the soft skills that I might well have had 15 years ago are still important, but you equally now need the technology ones. So you need to know a bit about GCP, you need to know a bit about data mesh, you need to be able to maybe write a bit of code. So for me personally, I have this aspiration of, being able to do a bit more coding and that sort of side. But that's an ongoing challenge.
Yeah.
And the market changes all the time.
It does. You just learn one skill and it's like, on to the next skill.
Yeah, because Python is the big, language. Everyone, you talk to the data engineers at the Oakland Group. Oh, I've written this in Python, and well, it's a snake, isn't it? It's like, tell me a bit more about this. But that is the language of choice at the moment. And then 5 years ago, I think it was R or something. So it changes all the time, and I can't keep up with the technology. I rely on a lot of other people who are a lot smarter than me to explain and do some of this stuff.
Yeah, but the soft skills are still so important, aren't
Absolutely.
they? So in terms of soft skills, I mean, there's a few big ones that I can think of, but if someone's looking to get into data and doesn't know where to start, what kind of skills would you look for?
The one that's always trotted out a lot, and I'm sure you've seen it, Emma, is the idea of being able to tell a story with data.
Yeah.
I think that's so powerful. What you can't do with clients is say to them, if you do X, Y, and Z and use this bit of kit, you'll have this answer. You need to tell them the story and bring them on that journey as to why that's important and the value of the data. So I think the ability to communicate in that way is important. I think there's also a need to influence people and give them confidence that you know what you're doing, which is an age-old skill. But I think in data, when you're spending a lot of money, then giving them the comfort that their £2 or their £5 million spend is going to result in something tangible is quite important. But I think it's very much also the repetition as well. That's part of the ongoing challenge that we see, that you tell someone you know, you're a data steward, you're a data owner, and they go, oh, fantastic. And a week later you go, so what have you done since I explained what you need to do? Oh, I haven't really done anything. Remind me what this is all about. So a lot of it is prompting them and reminding them and finding different ways to educate them and train them, really.
I think the art of storytelling is a dying art, actually, because it's huge in sales as well. Because if I introduce you to a candidate and go, here's their CV, here's a little bit about them, well, that's not inspiring. This is them, this is how they talk, this is their life, this is where they went to university, this is their family. When you bring it to life. And I just think it can be applied in every industry, but I don't think as many people have this skill as they should. And maybe it's a confidence thing. I
think it's a mixture of confidence, and I think it's also a bit of a culture thing.
Yeah.
I think we, to an extent, in the sort of world that we live in, you can do everything so remotely and on a phone, and you don't actually need to, like we're doing here, talk to people, you know, actually pick the phone up and have a conversation. I'll do a Teams call. Well, no, just talk to me. So I think there's an element of we've fallen out of the habit of storytelling, and also we don't know what the best story is to tell as well, and that's part of the challenge.
And people will say to me, and I know it's a time thing, but like, can't you just put that in email? I'm like, I can't get it across to you in email. Can you not tell how excited I am? You know, your tone of voice, the way you describe something, it does bring it to life in a way that it's a shame. Because I mean, I don't know how you communicate with your team, but a lot of our clients, it's email, text, Teams, which is great, and people are busy. But it's so important to still get on the phone and have face-to-face meetings. Absolutely.
And we've been talking a lot within our organisation about going into the office, having a conversation with people. And, you know, occasionally I ring people up and they go, oh, hello.
I know.
Fancy you ringing me. You know, what about Teams? And you go, well, this is what we used to do.
Yeah.
You know, you used to speak to people, you ring people up and get them engaged. And, that we need to make sure that continues, and that's part of the skill of making data interesting for people. Because if it's some abstract concept that, you know, exists on a screen or something, then you're going to struggle to bring it to life with a lot of people.
Yeah, and out of work as well. I've got people who work with me who are probably a generation below me, or a decade below me, should we say, not generation, and they don't pick up the phone ever to their friends. It's all text, all social media. And they obviously work in sales as well and used to being on the phone. But like, oh no, that'd be weird if I called my friend, which is such a shame. Like, remember the good old days we used to call someone's house phone?
Absolutely. Well, this morning I was doing a bit of work before I came over here, and I just wanted to check something out. And I thought, shall I text him? And you think, why don't I just ring him and he'll know the answer straight away? But you almost go text, email, Slack, Messenger before you go, oh, I'll ring them.
Yes.
So it is an interesting mindset. But I think there's a bit of, you know, the pandemic and, you know, us having fallen out of the habit a little bit for a few years and now getting back in. And, you know, the events that you're running tonight, you know, are great because it's face to face again. It's actually people talking to people, which is good.
It's important, it is. So did you see after the pandemic then a real shift in the way people are working, as in they're used to that pandemic life, not wanting to communicate face to face?
I think we're still seeing some of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was a necessary situation, but in the organisations, and this was before Oakland, very much you moved to Teams and Zoom and Skype and whatever, you know, all these things that we had. Culturally now, I think we're moving slightly back away from that to a more traditional traditional pre-pandemic kind of culture, but it's still there, you know.
Yeah.
We all do it, you know, and I do it, you know. I'll do a Teams call. I won't phone this person. It's force of nature really, or whatever at the moment, but we need to do more of it.
We do. It actually reminds me, you mentioned Skype there, because Skype has pretty much died a death.
I know.
Now, I'm not saying it's because they had a bad data strategy, but to segue into that, companies who are not embarking on a data strategy and not putting the right investment, money and time into it, do you think they're going to essentially make themselves redundant in a certain space that they're in?
I think so. I mean, I think unless you're investing in the future, and you know, be that AI in data tooling, then at a point in time, they are actually going to struggle financially. I think the scary thing is there's an awful lot of businesses out there that continue to make money despite not doing necessarily the right things with data. So some of those will carry on because they're big enough and smart enough to do that. But yeah, if you're not investing in the right skills, the right tools, your data overall, then you're going to struggle, I think, longer term.
Yeah. So as part of storytelling, is some of it to put not only what's possible, but also put the fear into people that if you don't do it, these can be the repercussions?
Absolutely. There's I use this phrase a lot, the carrot and the stick. We do a lot of, if you do all of this and you'll get great insight on it, I mean, you'll be able to grow your market by blah, blah, blah. Whereas actually there's an awful lot of, if you don't do this, your data's going to get worse, you're going to make dodgy decisions, your AI that you're building is going to be pants, everybody's going to get fed up with you. So there is a stick kind of mindset, and some organisations, because they're highly regulated and have sort of someone watching them, are typically the ones that will use more of a stick mentality than the carrot. But you need a bit of you need a bit of the both.
You do, to bring people down to earth, really, and give them that warning.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is striking a balance. You can't operate totally in an environment where everybody is petrified of getting it wrong or making a mistake. So it's striking that balance.
It is. So in terms of AI from a data governance perspective, how are the two intertwined?
Interesting question, because I think people look at AI and talk about AI governance, and then which is the overall, how do you actually manage this? And data governance is a subset of that. Data governance is ensuring that the data that sits within your models that drives AI is fit for purpose. So one aspect of data governance AI is how can you ensure that your foundations for your AI is correct. Another aspect is, can you automate some of that data governance so that you don't have loads of people writing policies, checking spreadsheets, etc., etc. So some AI data governance is now about can we actually use a program or a system that actually is going to ensure that Emma doesn't inadvertently go and access the wrong database, or it gets shared with the wrong person, etc. So you can use it in that regard. And then there's also using AI to apply really smart approaches to people's day-to-day roles. So in data ownership, why wouldn't you have an AI data steward?
Yeah.
Going forward, the opportunities are endless, really. But the principles of data governance in AI aren't really that different from a classic data governance program.
Right, okay. And the possibilities are endless with processes, policies. I mean, the amount of time that must save is insane.
It is, I mean, writing policies, agreeing policies, getting standards, writing them is one thing. Getting people to embrace them is a big challenge. And if you can get a computer or something that takes that load off, that must be, a massive benefit. And also it's smarter in terms of checking who's doing the right thing, rather than having a data team there that's having to do all the checks and balances.
Yeah.
So the opportunities are huge, and that comes back to what we were saying about people in the data governance space having more technical skills now than perhaps they would have done 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Because they need to know some of that stuff.
So have you integrated Gen AI already at the Oakland Group in terms of how you work day to day?
We are still on that journey. So we've created, and again, people talk about these chat bots. I don't know what they really mean, but, it's a bit of tooling. So we've created prototypes and things. But again, we're developing that capability, and each organisation has different requirements. So we're doing work in that space and continue to sort of grow and understand as each client comes along.
Yeah, it's a really interesting perspective you have, because you have so many different clients at a different stage of strategy. So others, it's very much in the infancy, and others more towards maturity. And I imagine that keeps things interesting for you as well. It's
one of the things when I talk to people who are thinking about joining us, it's wide variety. So, one week you might be working with a water company, another week you might be working with a telecoms company, another month's time you'd be working with a university or a bank, and each one of those is different and the requirements are different across the piece. So it's never a dull moment really. So you get quite a nice wide variety of clients to work on.
And good insight. In your opinion then, which industries, or is there a particular industry that's very ahead of the curve in terms of AI?
Really good question. I think all industries are talking a good game. I would certainly say some industries are ahead of the curve because they have been for a good number of years. I mean, classically, obviously, industries that already operate in the telecommunication space, the actual technology spaces themselves are fairly advanced. I mean, I think some of the stuff that is being done in travel is quite clever. You know, who would have thought? 5 years ago we would, not have paper tickets and booking and all of this sort of thing, and being very smart. I think that the whole travel and industry is quite advanced. Pharmaceuticals, they use an awful lot of technology for drugs and testing and all of those sides. So I think there's a number of industries that are in a more advanced state. I think some industries are lagging behind, but the nature is you can't automate everything, and I think it's working out which one's which. And finding the opportunities.
We are very reliant on our phones, aren't we? It always scares me if I run out of battery on holiday and I've suddenly lost access to my ticket as well, and my wallet. I don't take my debit card anywhere anymore.
Absolutely. I occasionally go to places and they say cash only, and you go, what's that then? Where's the nearest cash point? But you don't have, the need for cash in the way that you did before. It's all integrated, and it's a bit scary. And I agree. I was in Dublin last year, and I couldn't book me tickets for my return flight because I couldn't get on my phone, and that's quite scary. It
is. What about passports? Do you think eventually they'll all be done digitally?
I think it's inevitable.
I
think so. There's obviously security and all sorts of political challenges around that, but I think ultimately nearly any documentation that we have, driving licenses, passports, whatever, will all become a digital format really. It will take time, and there's going to be resistance to that.
Is there a part of you that's old school? Because there certainly is me, and like that nostalgia for like the past and doing things that were not all just reliant on our phone 24 hours a day.
I can give you a really good example. At 7:30 this morning, when I was trying to do an app in the middle of Yorkshire for a car park on a phone with no 5G, and I wasn't registered with Ringo, and you just go, can I just have a cash machine to put me £2 in? It was just bonkers really, and you just think, actually this is so complicated.
It's stressful.
For the sake of £2, for a day's parking, it took me about nearly an hour to get the app on. Well, I was on the train actually, and eventually did it. But that was a great example, great idea. But when you're in the middle of nowhere and you can't get 5G, and you ring the IVR and the IVR's not working, and you just go, there must be a simpler, good old day.
100%. I really do believe as well, in as much as we like the digital world, we're part of the digital world, digital detox. Like, is that something that you're conscious of outside of work? Do you try and switch off?
I do. Although it's so easy to grab your phone. I'll just check what's on the news. I'll just check what the football score is. I'll just check where my daughter is. So, I don't do a full detox, but I try not to look at it in the night or whatever, but it's hard because we're so connected. We're so connected.
So in terms of the future then for you, I know AI is a huge piece of the puzzle, but do you think that's still going to be the topic of conversation in the next 3 years, or will we have moved on to something else?
Really good one to ask. I think AI is here to stay in one guise or another. I mean, I think the thing is that immediately I thought of something that was the big new idea a few years ago, which I got heavily involved in, which isn't anymore, is data mesh. That was the big, 2 years ago when I was first at the Oakland Group, that was the big idea, and a lot of the ideas of that have been taken on board elsewhere, but it's sort of fizzled out in many ways. I mean, the concept's still there, but I think AI, because it is so transformational and has the ability to save money, make processes more efficient, appeal to all sorts of industries. I think AI will be with us for a good number of years, and I'm not really seeing that changing anytime soon. I think it's going to be here, and we're literally at probably the bottom of the mountain at the moment in terms of the AI opportunity, and it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and more people. We thought data was growing, but I think the whole AI employment community will grow exponentially as well over
definitely.
time.
It's got the appeal of the outside audience as well, hasn't it? It's not just data people that are interested in AI, whereas they will have been, I mean, data mesh, you say that to the average person on the street.
Yeah, go, what's that?
Yeah.
What's that?
What's big data? So why do you think those trends didn't last?
Data mesh is an interesting one. I think partly data mesh came from an idea that you can't centralize and put data in this central place, and you can't do that cost effectively. So there was a bit of a reaction that centralizing everything was always going to be a challenge, and therefore why mess around trying to do that? Build it out. But data mesh only ever appeals to a relatively mature and large organization. Right. Of which there's a small number, so smaller organisations would never ever really be able to truly embrace data mesh because it would be too costly and too complex. So I think as a concept it was good, but as a business proposition and scalable proposition it was only ever going to appeal to certain organisations who were willing to break with the past and embrace a new approach. I think those organisations that can do it successfully are going to be very, very profitable, but you do have to throw a lot of money at it, and it has its own challenges.
Right. Okay.
But it was an interesting one because you went to Big Data London a few years ago. That was the topic of conversation. Last September, it was hardly mentioned really.
Right.
So it just shows within 12 months how things can change.
It does. In terms of the Oakland Group, do you work with mainly the private sector or also the public sector?
A mix. Some organisations are corporate organisations, others are public, and some are sort of quasi-public as well. So a complete mix really. So we're not sort of precious about who we choose to work with. So we probably have more private clients at the moment than public, but that continues to change.
Yeah. Do you feel they embrace it at the same rate, public and private, or are there clear differences there?
There are differences. I think the speed of decision making is slower in public sector organisations. The speed at which they want to move and their ability to move varies as well, whereas public sector, and particularly in regulated businesses, is we need this now, whereas you can't have it in 6 months. It might take you through two years or so. So you do see, in terms of their procurement, their speed of decision making, their appetite to change, there's differences. Yeah. But some public sector bodies haven't changed for years and years, and therefore there's a head of steam to actually change faster perhaps than they really can achieve.
Yeah, there's a pressure. What elements of the public sector then will be embracing AI?
In the public?
Yeah.
I think in the public sector, the NHS is a great example where there's great opportunities with AI in terms of medical assessments, and to an extent you're also seeing some of that with primary care in terms of using AIs to screen people who, so they don't all end up phoning up the GPs or 111 or whatever the number is. So I think in some areas like healthcare and social care, you can see those tools being really helpful. I was reading an article coming in this morning after I'd paid my Ringo, teaching and the whole teaching profession, of where teachers can use AI technology to make their jobs easier. The mundane tasks can be offloaded to AI and they can focus more on the students. So
Yeah.
that goes all the way through up into higher education as well. So I think there's a number of different sort of sectors there with the public sector.
Marking though in teaching could cause controversy, couldn't
Well,
it?
that was
if you get a bad grade, that's because of AI.
Yes, well, that was one of the points, because it was saying, oh, and of course there's grading, but there's an accuracy issue there, which, you know, we've seen the falling out of that. So yeah, there's a balance to be struck there. But yeah, I think in education, just generally across the board, you can see benefits of actually freeing up their time, which is always very time poor, to do really the focus, which is on the student.
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah, lots of interesting opportunities there, and as I say, the NHS has lots of opportunities, as does social care.
Yeah, it does. What ethical considerations need to be made in terms of AI and governance? Yeah,
I think one of the key differences between classic or traditional data governance and data governance in an AI context is this whole issue of ethics, because you need to be sure that what you're building and producing is, you know, ethically correct. So I think there's lots of different components to that, but one aspect is making sure that the data that you're using can be used ethically, which is a challenge. There's then, if this AI is giving you results or findings that are potentially contentious or unethical or whatever, then you need a mechanism to actually filter that as well. So I think there's a number of different ethical aspects that need to be taken into account in terms of the data that goes into an AI model and the application of the outputs and how they're used. I think with all of this, it's all about knowing whether you've got an ethical bias or not, and if you know you have, it's being able to articulate why you're doing X or Y with it.
So what steps should a company make then in terms of the ethical considerations? Because I think it's a part that companies don't want to get wrong.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I used to do a bit of work with an organisation called the Open Data Institute, and they had a data ethics, what they called a canvas. So, you know, I think if you're embarking on any kind of AI opportunity, you should, in parallel with that, look at, well, the ethics around it. And the Open Data Institute had this really good, it's a framework, they called it a canvas. I always think canvases are, you know, something you paint on, but basically some steps that you go through, and when you're considering something conceptually and also when you're building it, does this tick these boxes, and do we have an ethical issue here, or do we have an ethical risk, or whatever, and you go through it in a structured way, and that's how you can get people who are in the data involved in those decisions, so it's not just left with someone who's built this wonderful thing but not thought about, you know, the implications of the outputs or the inputs.
Right. So there's a lot of third-party frameworks and or organisations that can help you with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Oakland is just one of a number, but there's a number of frameworks that you can basically use yourself, or you could go to a consultant and say, well, can you as an independent look at, you know, the ethics of doing X, Y, and Z from an AI perspective. So there's lots of tools out there.
Yeah, okay, fantastic. So we're going to move on now to a quick fire data lightning round.
Oh, this sounds exciting.
So what's one common misconception about data that you'd like to debunk?
It can be fun.
Yeah. Can be fun.
It
absolutely.
Can be. Not necessarily it will be, but it can be.
I like that. Name a book, event or podcast that you think every data enthusiast should explore.
Ooh. I'm not allowed to say my own podcasts.
You can, if you want. Yeah. Plug yourself.
I can, but I won't do that. My podcasts, which are all about doing data governance by stealth, are worth a listen, because they were built and around the fact that data governance and the whole managing of data is quite expensive, and actually you can do an awful lot in an organisation without having to shed loads of money, bringing in loads of people and this concept of doing it by stealth under the radar
more accessible than we
what
think.
my podcasts were designed to do.
Brilliant.
And the other one, which I will plug because I know she's going to be on a subsequent one, is Susan Walsh's book about data. And I think it's called Between the Sheets,
Yes.
which is a brilliant title, but illustrates what you can do with data. So bit of a plug for Susan.
Brilliant.
There.
I like that. If you could offer one piece of advice to someone just starting their career in data, what would it be?
Be sure that you want to get involved in data, and also if you are keen to get into data, be aware that there isn't just governance, there isn't just platforms, there isn't just strategy. If you get into data, you can pretty much navigate your way across all of that, and that's sort of what I've done. I started in one place, but I've done lots of data in lots of different places. So it is a broad church in terms of opportunities, and you can train up in data science, but you can equally have a really good knowledge and grounding in building something architecturally. So be sure it's the right thing for you, but don't be constrained by I just want to be a data scientist or I just want to be a data management person.
Good advice.
Look wider.
Finish this sentence. Data is the key to
my retirement. Data is the key to, I would say everything.
That's a popular choice. In your opinion, what will be the most significant development in the world of data in the next 5 years?
I think I'm going to have to stay with AI.
It's not going anywhere.
It's not going to go away. I think AI is with us to stay for the foreseeable future. Data is the glue that drives AI and those good business decisions. AI is sort of going to be with us for a very long time, I think.
Data is the glue. I like that.
Data is glue. Well, it used to be data's an oil, but then that got discredited, didn't it? Data's the oil that keeps the organisation going. But I think it is the glue, really. Holds organisations together.
Perfect. Well, thank you. You did a good
you're
job.
welcome.
Went quick.
Wow.
There we are.